Abraham had a journey, which was also generations, not just the journey in the country, geographical journey. He had a human journey, because it went over in Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, then Joseph, then Moses, and they didn't go in the promised land. So this is why God had his guarantees in place, because he says, when he made this covenant with Abraham, he said, Abraham, I'm making this covenant with you, in your seed after you, and in your seed in their generations. So when we come to Christ, we are in the seed of Abraham. So we follow Abraham's journey, not the seed line's journey that never entered. Now this journey where people never entered, Moses didn't enter, neither did the people enter. They turned the promised land into a wilderness. So that is why we have nothing to do with that. So when we come to Christ, we enter in the promise, and Abraham is called the father of faith. Now, this is a whole journey that he took, but the natural journey, he says in Hebrews, they are an example for us. In other words, what happened to them is going to happen to our lives. And we must not follow the route that they went, so that there come a place that we can enter into our promised land. So get it. In Christ, we step into Abraham. But the minute we step into Abraham, we have a journey to the promised land. And this journey to the promised land, this is different from the preparation that Abraham did for us. And this journey is, he says, do not be like them. There remains a rest for the people of God. God said, I swear they will not enter my rest. What? He says, but there remains a rest for the people of God. Guys, we can enter. Jesus became the forerunner, and he entered. In entering, he says, Isaiah calls it out, he says, I will restore the tabernacle of David. And he says, I will restore. You will be like a watered garden where the waters fail not. But those that come after you, they will be called the restorer of roads to walk in, the repairers of the bridge. Now you can only do that in Christ. In other words, I'm so glad you're listening, because the minute you hear, it will open your eyes, and you will be the one spreading this good news that we can enter. When Jesus was here, Nicodemus said, how can you do this? God says, you cannot even see the kingdom if you're not in the Spirit. Now, where did this start? In Moses. Moses could not see the front side. He could not see the face of God while he was speaking to God face to face. So there is a breach that came in the seed line of Abraham that is this terrible example to us. Now, when God made the covenant with Abraham, things changed totally. And he said, in blessing, I will bless you. And in multiplication, I will multiply you. And he says to us in Hebrews that he swore this by himself. Where did this happen? Abraham followed God, and he came to the point where all the kings were making war. It is the worldly kings. There were a group of evil kings and a group of good kings. And Sodom and Gomorrah was under the evil kings. And this is where Lot made his dwelling, in this city. But Abraham moved to the mountains. Who will climb the mountain of God? You see, this is the sweet thing, but it's bitter. So when the worldly kings were warring, Abraham took 300 and 80 plus servants, and he slaughtered the kings. And it's mentioned in Genesis 4 and in Hebrews 7. We read about what happened. And I always thought, why did he slaughter the kings? And now God appears to him, because God came to Abraham and said, I am. In blessing, I will bless you. In multiplying, I will multiply you. In other words, God has revealed himself as the king. And we know, he says, he has made us kings and priests in Christ. He's the King of kings. So in him, we are kings. But Abraham did not take any of this. David slaughtered the giant. So where does the giants come? From the fallen state of Adam before the flood. And their DNA came through. David took care of that. Abraham took care of the kings. That is why when Jesus comes, he says his seed line is the son of David, the son of Abraham. What? And when it comes to restoration, he said he's going to restore the tabernacle of David. He never said he's going to restore the tabernacle of Isaac. He never said he's going to restore the tabernacle of Jacob. Do you understand what I'm saying? We have to understand the seed lines. So God comes to Abraham and said, it's got nothing to do with you anymore. It's not going to be your effort. Just be. Just be. What is that? Back to what he had to in the garden. You can just be. God placed you. The birds be, the bees be. You were made in the image and likeness of God. Just be what you are. So today we have a lot of wannabes. A wannabe is someone that wants to be something else that he really is. And if you get into that, if you're a deacon, don't want to be a pastor. If you're a pastor, don't want to be a prophet. If you're a prophet, don't want to be an apostle. So I don't know what the apostles want to be, but it's all crazy. I always say it, before you want to be something, just find out what it is before you want to be it. Then you'll find out you'll just want to be what you are. The best thing you can do is just be what you are. The best work you can do for God is just embrace what he has done for you. And in that flows it out, because he does the work. It's not our work anymore. That is the blessing of Abraham. So where did the bridge come in? Well, if you look at how God brought them out of Egypt, he brought them out with power. He brought them out with protection. He brought them out with possessions. Come on, power, protection, possessions. And it was all for a purpose, to the promised land. Oh my word. They saw miracles. It was the craziest, awesome place to just be amongst that. Oh, look at it. Can you imagine walking through that Red Sea? I would give anything to be there and see what happened there. It's like a living aquarium with no glass. I'm like, what happened there? I mean, those people for sure must know God revealed his power to them in order to take them in. Now, I have lived in a ministry where there are so many miracles, and everybody say, well, if I can see a real miracle, I'll believe. And what I have found is people saw miracles right in front of their eyes, and they went on and they didn't believe. They went on and did the same things again. I saw people healed of cancer, lung cancer. They stand up out of deathbeds and they go back to smoking. I saw a guy healed of HIV. I'll never forget that miracle. It was just like the Shekinah glory of God was, I think it's that glory that was on the ark. It was in the place. It was so tangible. It was like, it was crazy how this man just got up and, wah! 4 years later, he went back to what he did and he died of the same disease. So, what we need is, it needs to happen inside of us. It's not on the outside. This is why God makes a better covenant and a new covenant, because the old covenant worked through the generations, and we have Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph. Now, if we go through these, they were all examples. Isaac, he couldn't be comforted because of his mother's death. Now, when Adam left the garden, he called Eve and he said, Eve, you are now the mother of all living. Remember, he named all the animals. Now he names his wife. You're the mother of all living. And all that is a tragic situation because all have lost the glory. I mean, her first son became the first murderer. Her second son became the first person that entered death into Hades, Sheol. And this was a sad story. Now, eventually she died, and there was just it seems that there was no hope for man. So here comes the blessing in Abraham, a new covenant. You must remember, this is the volume of the book, and it was all to do with the whole story of humanity. And Isaac couldn't be comforted, and he was meditating in the field. And there came Rebekah riding with a servant, and she said, my master, who is this? And he said, this is our master. And she veiled herself. The first time we read about a veil. And he took her into his mother's tent and made her wife. This is what Jesus went right behind the veil. He was the forerunner. He broke the veil. He went right in it for us, and he made us his bride. What? This is the journey. This is the story that Abraham revealed. Then came Jacob, and he was like, there was nothing good in Jacob. I always thought, how in the world could God even use this man and call him our father Jacob? Now, you must remember, the testimony of Christ started with Abraham, and these are the testimonies. Here is this man. He was really not a good guy. And God just blessed him, and he walked off with so much blessings that he was called the glorious one. And he came to Esau, where he literally stole his birthright, and there was even peace for him there. So this is a story of, it doesn't matter. I can't care what has happened in your life. When you come to Christ, you step into that place where you have a promise of a place of rest that is power, protection, possessions, and it has a purpose. Everlasting life. That is the promised land. So Joseph came. Oh my word. If you really want to cry, read Joseph's story in one sitting. The beloved went to the pit. What is the pit? Death. It resembles death. Then he went to prison. What is the prison? He says, oh, you prisoners of death, I've come to open your gates. And what did God do with him? From prison to prime minister. God is going to make us kings and rulers in Christ. And all this was going on to Moses. And then Moses, power, 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 protection, 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 provision, provision, provision. But they couldn't discern between bitter and sweet because they still had to walk through the wilderness. And when they finally came to the place, Moses could not enter. The people that did enter, the first thing they did is they broke the bridge. And they made their promised land a wilderness. But God said, I will restore. I will restore. And this is the story of Jesus. He came and he became the restorer of the bridge. He became the bridge on the bridge. He became the door so that we can walk into the glory.